And welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast and mine, 21st Century Rocker Mom podcast with me, your host, Tanya Candler. I'm back with you for another week of podcast awesomeness. You can't deny the awesomeness of this. And we're going to go back. We're going to jump in the time machine and we're going to go back to a decade that you either know or that you either love or you hate, or maybe you don't know much about it all because maybe you weren't born yet. But you're going to get educated. You're going to get educated. We're going to go back. We're going to do a Wayback, Playback into the 90s. It's probably one of my favorite decades because I kind of grew up in it. The 90s kind of raised me. Well, not only the 90s raised me. The mall raised me. The band raised me. Many things raised me. My parents obviously raised me. I wasn't a fucking orphan. But come on now. Come on. Tanya Candler, T-Can. Tanya from the block. I still like punk rock. I'm still Tanya from the block. Seriously. I can think of all the kinds of things that can rhyme with that, but I'm not going to sing them. But no, like really, like the 90s decade for me is not one that I want to forget. Like, because I had many different like ages and coming of age, and I kind of came of age throughout the 90s and really like blossomed through then. Blossom, great show from the 90s. But that's when I did kind of come of age from the 90s. And what a week, I'll tell you. What a week to talk about the 90s, because what a week it's been. I'm sitting amongst my things here that are like moved into this room, into the studio here, because my office, we woke up to what I called the Great Deluge. I guess if you want to use it in Christian terms, you can say that. We had a flood this week. Holy fuck. I was like, oh my God. I came downstairs. I'm like, water in the basement, water in the basement. So you're like, oh my God. But it's fixed now. Thank you, YouTube. Everything is safe. I'm just like, there's like $1 bajillion worth of like recording and sound equipment and stuff like in my office. I don't need any of that shit there. So we're doing a bit of a musical switcheroo. So we'll see what happens. But the good thing is everything's dry and everything is safe. So, you know, going back to the 90s, you got to know that I was born in 1983. Going back into the 90s, we had lots of Kool-Aid. We did not have them in these pouches, though. We had them in pouches that you had to mix with water and a ton, like a fuckload of sugar. This one's clear, actually, and it has stevia in it. And I actually don't mind giving these to my kids because they're not fucking horrible. I actually was talking to my doctor about that. She's like, I don't want to give my kids so much sugar. She's like, where do you get those? I'm like, I order them like from Walmart. And they come to the porch, the grocery delivery. I don't have, like I said, I don't have time to fucking grocery shop. I don't need a Walmart with some mouth breather all over me. Get the fuck out of my face. If I need some shit, I call the grocery thing and do the grocery thing. It comes. They didn't have that in the 90s because we didn't have that kind of convenience in the 90s. I've talked about how it's an instant gratification world, and it is. It certainly wasn't in the 90s, but I think because it wasn't such an instant gratification society, I think that we lived a little bit better and we thrived a little bit more because we didn't rely on these things to make us happy. You know what I mean? We had more like experiences. And I think, you know, I mean, I grew up in 80s. Like, I mean, everyone was like, I remember having this guitarist in one of the bands that I played in one time, and they asked me, what was it like to like grow up in the 80s? Because I told them that I was born in 1983, and they're like, what was it like to grow up in the 80s? And I was like, well, I shit my pants a lot. Like, I was a little kid. I was born in 1983. I was just a baby. I was just a wee baby. I was just a baby. So seriously, it was the 90s was a weird time, but I grew up watching a lot of like kind of like fucked up stuff. It's not that I didn't have a lot of adult supervision or anything like that. It's that when it came to the television, my dad owned a movie store when we were kids. And when it came to the television, we kind of like went to it ourselves. You know, we kind of like made our own decisions about things. 80s parents were weird. I'm just going to put that out there. Like kids then, I don't know if kids now or kids then saw worse stuff than they did now. We'll talk about that later because there's a lot of bad shit that I saw in the 90s that fouled my mind up forever. It's probably why I'm as functional as I am now, because all the shit that I saw in the 90s that fouled my mind up. And I'm talking like media kind of stuff. I'm not talking about like seeing your parents get divorced. That's not something that fucked me up. Something that fucked me up was like seeing like a horrible movie or a cartoon that effed me up, or a band that scared me, whatever, something like that, or a magazine that scarred me for life. A core memory moment that just get you down right in the middle of the frontal cortex. You're never going to get rid of it. It's with you forever. It's imprinted in you. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's a long weekend. In Canada, at least. We have a civic holiday tomorrow. I'm not sure if that means you're supposed to work or you're not supposed to work. I'll probably work anyway, because you know what I mean. I mean, like I say, I function at it pretty much on all the time. But like I say, the 90s was great. We had in Canada, we had like Jean Chrétien. We had in America, they had Bill Clinton. I mean, speaking of like, I mean, historically, like a lot of bad things happened like that were notable in the 90s, like especially in the United States. There was the Columbine shooting at the end of the 90s. There was the Oklahoma City bombing disaster. There was the Gulf War. There were the LA City riots. I'm trying to think, like there was a lot of crazy shit going on in the 90s. Like there was some crazy stuff going on, like politically at least. But as far as like movies, TV, pop culture, you know, the things that I like to talk about when I'm not getting all crazy political. The things that I like to talk about are, you know, a lot of good things were going on, but there was so much crazy stuff that I want to talk about. You know that I want to talk about the weird stuff as I have a sip of my fucking Kool-Aid. Speaking of the 90s, this week I found out that Bryan Adams and Mel C from the Spice Girls, Spice Up Your Life, did a re-recording of Baby When You're Gone. When you're gone, I feel like I'm in love. Oh my God, they did a re-recording of it and then they did a video of it. Oh my God, it like made my day. I know it's so nerdy, but Bryan Adams is like the perfect match of like the Canadian like blue jean rock with like, it's Mel C from the Spice Girls, for crying out Pete. What's wrong with you? She's a legend. She's a legend. Speaking of 90s legends, Spice Up Your Life. The Spice Girls made my life in the 90s. They did a lot for my style in the 90s. And I'll tell you, let me thank makeup in the 90s. Makeup was huge in the 90s, even bigger than it is now, I want to say. It was such a huge industry. There was, you know, there were CoverGirl ads everywhere. There were Maybelline ads everywhere. There were Revlon ads everywhere. There were Yves Saint Laurent ads everywhere. There were perfume ads. Everything in a magazine was fold out, smell this perfume. Now everybody's allergic to everything. So they can't put that shit in fucking magazines anymore. They can't do a fold out piece of paper that smells like eau de toilet. It means toilet water, okay? But some kind of toilet water that smells like perfume. They can't put that in magazines anymore because people get the anaphylactic shock. So you don't want the people to get the anaphylactic shock. Because I guess Tony Clifton's going to be on the show today. He was not from the 90s, but we'll talk about Tony Clifton on another episode. Oh, God. So this week also, I'm not sure, but I heard that Tony Dow, and okay, if you don't know who Tony Dow is, he was older. Tony Dow was Wally on Leave It to Beaver, Wally and the Beav, if you don't know. You know, Beaver Cleaver, June Cleaver, Ward Cleaver, Leave It to Beaver. If you don't know the show, just Google it, okay? If you don't know it. If you're too young to know the reference, which I know some of you might be, that's okay. Just Google Leave It to Beaver. It was a wholesome show. I watched repeats, obviously, of it growing up, but we love Leave It to Beaver. So I heard that Tony Dow died this week, and then I heard that his family had prematurely announced his death. So I'm still on the fence about whether Tony Dow is actually Earthside or not Earthside this week. So did Tony Dow really die this week? I will find out, and I will let you know next week if Tony Dow's like indeed like on life support or something, or he's no longer with us on this side of things. Maybe he is in another dimension. I don't know where Tony Dow is. I got canceled this week. I got canceled. This is so funny. This is the week that I got canceled and blocked from a whole bunch of things. Some things happened and some companies blocked me, which is really funny because, you know, I have an opinion, a big opinion. I mean, an opinion is like an asshole. Everybody's fucking got one. And some people can just like dish it out, but they cannot take it. They can't take a comment. They can't take a question. If you have a business, like be prepared to answer comments, questions, not even like bad things that are coming from people being like, hey, how's it going? How come you guys won't let me order from you? Or whatever your question is. And then you just get blocked and like shadow banned, as they call it on TikTok, I think. And it's happened to a lot of people in one particular community. And so I got banned this week, so I made some funny TikTok videos about it. And even one got taken down because the minute these people see it, they report it. So, you know, they're watching. So if they are, I just want to say, hi, assholes. Anyways, I know they're watching, which is cool. But let's get back to the 90s. The 90s, I will say, was best for music, movies, media, anything that started with an M. Blockbuster Video. There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter. There was no Instagram. There was no TikTok. There was no, you know, Rock Around the Clock. There was none of that. We had ourselves to rely on. Like personally myself, later in the 90s, like I had my bass and we had guitars, and of course I'm sitting around all my charms right now. But of course, I mean, I got signed in the 90s. It was a good time to be alive. The 90s was the days of like hundreds of thousands of dollars and $1 million record contracts and like huge film budgets. It was just, the 90s was an excessive decade, I would say. It was full of excess, and for many reasons. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, money, politics, you name it. The 90s was kind of bold and brazen for that, I would say. It was big with, I would say, like big concerts, like not like just like arena rock of the 80s and stuff that you would remember, like the big hair metal bands and things like that, but big stadium rock and stuff like that. The 90s was good for that, but it was also good for big bands coming to small clubs and smaller scenes, which was cool. I saw a lot of cool, bigger bands in smaller clubs in the 90s, which was bitchin'. It was just kicking. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's dating me a bit. Or I'm going to go right into TV since I want to go into access of excess. Da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na. Who liked 90210? Okay, spoiler alert. If you didn't watch 90210, get your fucking ass on that. What's wrong with you? 90210 was like one of the best shows ever. The pilot premiered in 1990. We met our friends Brandon and Brenda Walsh, two like fraternal twins that had moved from Minneapolis, Minnesota with their parents, Jim and Cindy Walsh, to Beverly Hills, California, 90210. They gave me unrealistic expectations for high school. When I got to my high school, and it was not like West Beverly, when I got to Saunders, I was like, where the fuck is our pool? We had like a place where you could like fix cars. We had like a garage. Like, great. This is going to better my future. No, what I say, like, they gave me really unrealistic expectations for high school. I thought that is what it was going to be like, but that's what it's like, I guess, maybe in Beverly Hills. Who knows? But I mean, like, think of all the characters. You got Steve Sanders, the jockhead who used to, you know, who likes to kind of like hose people. He's not super nice. He's kind of got a chip on his shoulder. You got David Silver. He's kind of a little younger than everybody else. He really wants to fit in. You got Andrea Zuckerman. She's like 50 years older than everybody, but no one's supposed to know it. She lives kind of out of district. Nobody knows about that. She's a real brain. She's kind of real smart. She's really kind of like progressive for her age, I guess, like in the show. She's more of a forward thinker. She thinks outside a little bit more than some of the other female identified characters on that show do. We got Kelly. Got Kelly Taylor on that show. She's not thinking with her head very often. Kelly thinks with her dick a lot on that show. And we got Brenda Walsh. Another one who's a boy crazy son of a bitch. Oh my goodness. Brenda and Kelly. Like, and then we got Donna. We got Donna Martin, who ended up, obviously ended up with David for a little while. We'll talk about the David Donna thing. And then, then you got the boys that were always in the magazines. You got Brandon Walsh, played by Jason Priestley, a Canadian. Oh, Canada. We stand on guard for Jason Priestley. And then, God rest his beautiful soul, Dylan McKay, played by Luke Perry. Oh, rest in peace, Luke Perry. But who is like a Dylan fan or a Brandon fan? And I was always a Dylan fan. I'm not going to lie, because he was like a badass, and he had his own place, which is really, it wasn't really his place, because his parents were just always away. I mean, 90210 kind of conquered every topic that was sensitive as a teenager. I mean, it came out when I was young. So when I started watching it, I was a little bit older. I started watching a few repeats, but I was still like young when I saw first like episodes. My parents didn't know I was watching fucking 90210. They had no idea that I was like going to watch this kind of stuff. I was a mature child, very mature mentally. And I'll tell you though, like of all the characters I like the best, I can tell you which character I did not like the most. Oh my God. I did not like a character named Emily Valentine. She was this blonde girl. I was gonna like drop a B-bomb, but she was this blonde girl, and she was like one of Brandon's girlfriends. And even though I wasn't like got it bad for the teacher for Brandon, they went to a rave and she drugged him with some like GHB or some date rape drug or something. And he was like taking off his shirt and going crazy because he's probably feeling the vibe real good. I had no respect for that shit. So since that episode of 90210, I had a hate on for Emily Valentine's character. So when bad shit happened to her, I didn't feel that horrible, Emily Valentine. I'm just going to say that. You know, my sister had the VHS of 90210, The Graduation. I don't know if she bought it at like Blockbuster or a place by our house called Video Flix that was there. There was a place called Video Flix and it turned into a mini golf place. And we bought it and we watched the shit out of it. We watched it all the time, but it would open up, the front of it would open up like a yearbook. And you could kind of see like all the pictures of the people from 90210 and like all the characters and like, you know, Dylan and Brenda together or Dylan and Kelly together. Because it was the eternal like, is Dylan going to end up with Brenda or is he going to end up with Kelly? Because they were constantly fighting over him. Just fighting over Dylan. Not good. It was like a Betty and Veronica story, but kind of like more like mean-like, I think I would say. It was definitely more mean than Betty and Veronica. I think those girls like should have done like an epic rap battle for Dylan McKay, and then like it should have been like Brenda versus Kelly, and it would have been like a rap battle, and they could have just gone off on each other. It would have been totally hilarious. I would have gone for it. Who would have won in a rap battle? Brenda Walsh or Kelly Taylor, battling for the prize of Dylan McKay's love on the next episode of 90210. Oh my God. But I'll tell you, Dylan had a lot of bad things in his life. They dealt with a lot of death on that show, which was crazy. Like even Dylan's dad dying. Dylan's mom, Iris McKay, was definitely one of my favorite characters. She was a bit of a out there sort of fifth dimension lady. She kind of like, she reminded me of a psychic kind of, she was feeling the vibe. I liked Iris McKay. She was a good parent when she was around. You know what I mean? So many deaths. Speaking of deaths, Twin Peaks. That is one of my favorite shows. I am not going to go so deep into Twin Peaks that we're going to go like a deep dive into Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks, one of my favorite shows ever, also debuted in 1990. Twin Peaks is a Mark Frost and David Lynch, like it's an absolute masterpiece of a show. It conquers so many different things, from the most esoteric things to the most obvious things. Twin Peaks for me has always been one of those fascinating shows and series that I just can't take my eyes off, and I could watch it as many times as I possibly could. It just never gets old. Past the cherry pie, I will say that. So obviously Twin Peaks, cherry pie forever, obviously, but Agent Dale Cooper. I mean, the pilot of, like, the reason I mention Agent Dale Cooper is because it's Kyle MacLachlan. And again, he's a Canadian person. He's Canadian. And I think it's really cool that Twin Peaks is just kind of close to the Canadian border where it is. I've actually considered moving to Twin Peaks area in Washington. More on that another time. But like really, the show is fascinating. In the pilot, I mean, you see Laura Palmer's body wash up on the shore. Like it's pretty jarring to see like a dead body at that age and just be like, because like you want to watch, but you don't want to watch, but you do want to watch, but you don't want to watch. No one thinks what's going to happen in Twin Peaks is ever what happens in Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is one of those shows that's out there. You yourself have got to be in the mood for. But like, I mean, if you haven't seen Twin Peaks, again, what is going on in your life that you haven't seen Twin Peaks? Sit down, take some time, watch yourself some Twin Peaks. Use some really clever allegory, all kinds of things, fun characters, notable characters, people that you will recognize. Especially if you watch, like, let's say, like, Riverdale, for instance. Like, half the cast is in it, for Christ's sakes. But anyways. No, but seriously, Twin Peaks was one of the greatest shows, I would say, of the 90s completely. It was one of those shows that I loved it. And I still love it, and I watch it now. It's another show with lots of, like, deaths, and it's dark, and there's a lot to it. Another show that got more dark than I thought that it could be. Didn't look on the surface like this show was dark. It looked like it was wholesome. Had a nice Paula Cole intro. It was Dawson's Creek. Life on the creek seemed pretty good for everybody down there. We got Dawson Leary down there. We got Pacey going down on the creek. We got Joey. Oh my God, everybody loved Joey Potter. Let me ask you, why did the boys like Joey Potter so much? Is it because she seems so innocent? And because I was always kind of like more Team Jen. She was like cooler and more like rock and roll. And then she died. Spoiler alert, if you haven't fucking watched Dawson's Creek, holy fuck. Come on. Come on. Watch that Dawson's Creek. Jesus. But like, honestly, Dawson's Creek was amazing. Like, it was like these teenagers all talking like way existential, like adults, and like, you know, crawling through each other's windows and being in love with your best friend and kind of not being in love with your best friend and then being in love with his best friend. And it's just a weird story altogether. But like, Dawson's Creek was one of those quintessential shows of the 90s. Again, there was a core memory that just like shaped me. I loved the creek. I loved Dawson's Creek. And like, Rob has a friend who also admires Dawson's Creek as much as I do. And when I was pregnant with my second, and I was like too huge to move at night, Rob and I watched reruns of Dawson's Creek. Like, I'm talking, we watched every episode and every season because I was gigantic with my second. I was huge and I was like on bed rest. So, what better time not to catch up on Dawson's Creek? There's always a good time. There's always time for the creek. I didn't want to wait for my life to be over, so I didn't. So I watched it and it was great. Ready or Not was a Canadian TV show. It was crazy. Ready or Not was a show that we had in Canada that was more of like a coming of age story of these teenage girls named Busy and Amanda, who they just followed their lives every episode in some conundrum that they always ended up getting into. They always ended up like getting in trouble, like huge shit from like Busy's like super Italian, super strict butcher dad. He was fucking scary as fuck. He always had a knife in his hand, like a bloody meat apron on. I'm just so glad it's not my dad. That'd be so crazy. Jesus, Murphy. Well, there's so many amazing episodes that at the time that I remember being young and like laughing at them because there was one episode I remember and it was specifically, I'm like rubbing my hands because I'm so uncomfortable. There's this one episode on masturbation and the one girl, Amanda, says to Busy, she's just like, they're camping out or something for like the summer and they're camping out in a tent. And the one says to the other one, you know, sometimes when I scratch myself, you know, like down there, like it feels pretty good and I like don't want to stop. And they just have this big conversation about masturbation. I don't think they know that they're talking about what they're doing, but I think they're discovering their bodies. There's talks about like dating, being in a band, being excluded. There's all kinds of like bullying. There was like a lot of like regular teenage topics that you kind of have to tackle, like sex, things like that. I think there was one about condoms. Like they were all something, but it was one of those 90s TV shows again that left a mark on my head. And then I'm so excited. I'm so scared. Oh my God. Saved by the Bell. It's all right because I'm Saved by the Bell. Did you watch Saved by the Bell? And I'm not talking like Saved by the Bell, the new class. I'm talking like when it started. Saved by the Bell, like the OG, Screech Powers, you know, Zach Morris, AC Slater, you know, all the, you know, Kelly Kapowski, lots of Kellys, eh? Like lots of just these characters. I watch Saved by the Bell like a mofo. I love Saved by the Bell. I have a few friends that are also like Saved by the Bell fanatics. They love Saved by the Bell just as much as I do. We could just talk about Saved by the Bell forever. I even once at a garage sale bought the Saved by the Bell board game. And then it was bought from me by an ex-boyfriend who probably still has it now, which is like hilarious because it's probably like worth money. I'd play it. I'd totally play it. I don't know who I'd be though. Mama, pig. I don't know who I'd be. Who knows? I'd probably be Screech. Oh, he died. That's sad that Dustin Diamond died. Oh. Saved by the Bell reminds me of that. Okay, no more talking about that. Terrible. Let's go to movies. We got the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know what though? As much as I want to talk about like the good movies, because there were so many good movies. Like I say, there was a blockbuster budget for so many of these movies in the 90s. There was so much money going around and being thrown at these productions that they were huge. They were big. You go down to the Blockbuster Video. That's where I'd go to. My card. I rent myself a VHS tape before I had a DVD player. Rent myself a movie or two and have a weekend out of it. Get some potato chips and whatever. Just Blockbuster and chill. That's what it was back in those days. It was fucking Blockbuster and chill. You got yourself a little Blockbuster. You got yourself a little Pizza Hut. You went home. You just sat on your ass. You watched your videotapes. What's wrong with that? Get you some Burger King and get yourself busy. Seriously, what's wrong with a little Blockbuster and chill? I miss those days. I miss those days of the physical copies. I mean, obviously, I pop my like VHSs in. I pop my DVDs in still like now. But like back in the day, that's all we had. And it was so cool because I miss those days when things were just kind of just like simple. I couldn't just click on my Apple TV and it'd just be there. It's like I liked to have the physical copies of things. Whereas they took up a lot of space. Like now things take up digital space. You know what I mean? It's different for every person. I just thought it was cool. You know what I mean? Oh my God. So let's talk about the movies that effed us up forever. So I'm talking core memory movies. And I'm going to start with one that effed me up. And like, according to my direct messages on Instagram, effed up a lot of other people too. Like I couldn't even rewatch this one for like research on the podcast. And it's Kids. Kids came out in the early 90s. Rosario Dawson's in it. You know, it was the one with Casper and Telly, and it follows the life of these kids like throughout like a day. They weren't any kind of kids that I grew up with. I'm telling you, the movie itself is so visceral, and it deals with a lot of like blatant like drug use. There's a lot of rape. There's a lot of like trigger warning. The movie is do not like. I don't even think Rob said he didn't see it until he was in his 20s. I saw it when I was like 15. And it like blew my head off. It like still makes my skin crawl to this day. Kids is one of those movies. It's just like, if you're not ready for that, trigger warning, do not watch it. Don't. It's a great movie, but it's like burned into my head. Like when I watched it when I was 15, like I hadn't had sex yet or like been exposed to those kinds of drugs. Like maybe I'd smoked pot before and I'd like knock back a few like home brews like once in a while, like beer, but like that was not the kind of like lifestyle that I grew up in, and neither did any of my friends. Like we were all sneaking booze from our parents' liquor cabinets, but nobody was doing that kind of stuff. Kids was, like I say, my one friend said it's a good word for it, and I use the word visceral. That's all I'm going to say about Kids. Jawbreaker. I killed Liz. I killed the teen dream. You know, Jawbreaker, where, you know, Rose McGowan plays Courtney, mean Courtney. And they put a jawbreaker in this girl's mouth for her birthday, and they tied it in her face and kind of put like a duct tape around her mouth. They put a jawbreaker in her mouth and they shove her in a trunk, and they're going to take her somewhere for her birthday. But she accidentally aspirates it and it lands down her throat and she dies. Seriously, it has a wicked soundtrack, but then it's like they want to get rid of the body, and it's scandalous. Jawbreaker is a wicked movie with a wicked soundtrack. It's got so many good bands on it. And I mean, the acting in it is great. It's got Rose McGowan in it. It's got a ton of people that are notable in it, and it's got Rebecca Gayheart in it. I think it's got all kinds of different good actresses and actors in it. It's pretty funny, and it's one of those quintessential teen movies that just made me go, whoa. And Mallrats, anything Kevin Smith, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, like Clerks, and those types of movies. Those are movies, and Jay and Silent Bob, obviously, those are things that stick out in my head. Snoochie Boochies! Ah! I loved Jay and Silent Bob, and I still do love Jay and Silent Bob. I mean, like, Silent Bob is looking nice and skinny these days. Kevin Smith is now, like, vegan. He had some health problems. He went vegan, health problems be gone. Poof, look at that magic. Vegan magic. 24 karat magic. Ask Kevin Smith. Holy fuck. But seriously, Kevin Smith movies were quintessential to the 90s. Chasing Amy was quintessential to, like, a lot of like 90s culture, really a lot of quintessential to a lot of like gay culture. There wasn't a lot of like gay representation in film at that time for the LGBTQ2 community at all. And Kevin Smith like kind of went there without being LGBTQ himself. He just went there, and he did it in such a way that it was good. It was respected. It was respectable. I liked it. It was Chasing Amy is one of those movies that was good. Same with Mallrats. Like I love Mallrats. Those are probably my two favorite Kevin Smith movies from the 90s, I will say. I like those a lot. Dazed and Confused, obviously. All right. It'd be cooler if you did. Like seriously, Wooderson and Matthew McConaughey and Dazed and Confused. Probably one of the best soundtracks and movies. Just slap them together. I have both. I could watch them both and listen to them both any day of the week, as long as my kids aren't in the room, because I mean, it does deal with some adult topics. But like, really, it's great. I love that show, and I love that movie, and I love those songs, and I love that time. And I think capturing all that together and watching it when I was a teenager just like really made it more come to life. I was just like, wow, again, something else that gave me unrealistic expectations from high school. I thought I was going to go have to fry an egg on my head, like on the sidewalk, because someone was going to be mean to me. I thought there's going to be these like car parties where we're going to be like lighting things on fire. Not that I didn't drive around with my friends and smoke pot, because I did a little bit at the end of high school, like when I was a little bit older. But like, I didn't drive, but they drove, and I just sat around and smoked pot. That was high school. You know, you're dumb. You know, you're a dumb kid. And you just haven't gotten over yourself yet. So, you know, that happens with age. You slow down. But I mean, we had Clueless. I want to be a supermodel with Alicia Silverstone. And obviously my favorite in yours, Brittany Murphy. Brittany Murphy, God rest her soul. Seriously, I love Brittany Murphy. She was so good. But I found Clueless was like a 90210, but kind of cleaned up a little bit without as much like language and grittiness. And they still like handled like smoking weed and like going to parties and like drinking and things like that and stealing the car, but nothing really bad, you know. And I guess falling in love with your stepbrother is gross. Paul Rudd and Alicia Silverstone. Shame, I know your name, but I guess they're not blood related, so I don't know how that goes. Jurassic Park, one of the first horror movies I ever saw. Like real horror movies, really scary. In the 90s. Jurassic Park scared the living daylights out of me. Those fucking raptors in the kitchen. Tell me you weren't fucking scared shitless of that shit. Tell me. I want your honest opinion, and I want your honest truth. I want you to hit me with your fucking truth and tell me you weren't scared of those fucking raptors in the kitchen. Because I know you were scared. You're fucking terrified. This week, like I say, I took a break for something that I needed to do, which was cathartic for another person. I did something called I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna call it breadhead and the tortilla slap. That's what I think we decided to call it. I let my sister slap the shit out of me with a tortilla in the face over and over again until I spit out water. I did that tortilla challenge thing. I saw it on TikTok, and I saw a bunch of my friends did it on TikTok, and people that I knew. And I saw people who were like some celebrities did it on TikTok and stuff like that. People that have really big followings. They're like not like John Travolta, but you know, people of that caliber, like that have that many followers, you know. And they were doing these challenges, so I filled my mouth up with water, and it's on my TikTok and it's on my Instagram or whatever. And my sister's just like slapping the shit out of me with a tortilla. I didn't get to eat it after, which sucked, and my face was so fucking red after. Boy, was my face red. But seriously, I got tortilla slapped in the fucking face. Bring on the next carb. That's what I say. Next time you can whack me in the face with a baguette. Bring it on. It's funny. I love it. So, you know, I think the 90s was also another time for, like, I was putting music behind my videos in TikToks and things like that. And I was thinking about 90s music and things that I used to listening to in the 90s. The thing that really hasn't changed is I still kind of listen to it now. I was listening to a lot of Hole. I was listening to a lot of Nirvana. I was listening to a lot of L7. I was listening to a lot of Veruca Salt. I was listening to a lot of Garbage. I was listening to a lot of Oasis. I don't know. Were you Team Noel or were you Team Liam? I was always Team Noel. I'm just going to say that. Apparently no one is surprised. A lot of people told me they were Team Noel too. I didn't get many Team Liams. Maybe one. I got like 12 votes for Noel. Sorry, Liam, you lose. The end. But I mean, I was listening to early new metal, different things, like I was listening to the Deftones, I was listening to Korn. Like I say some things never change. Like I say Veruca Salt. I was listening to a lot of Veruca Salt. Like those, like that was like one of the bands that influenced me the most. I was listening to No Doubt a lot. That band got me with bass lines, and then obviously Gwen Stefani being like a total queen. But the bass lines and No Doubt songs were like absolutely undeniable. They're so fun and they're bouncy and they're fun. I like No Doubt a lot. So I will never play that down. But I was listening to a lot of Cold Chamber and, like I say, like Korn and things like that. And I was running around like New York City at the time, like, because I got signed, like I say, when I was a teenager in that like age and that era, that MTV sort of era when things were coming out on TV around that 97, 98, let's say. And we're just running around New York like fucking assholes doing whatever we wanted. Going to see, you know, like Jimmy at Trash and Vaudeville. Again, rest his soul when he was still alive, and getting like ridiculous outfits and things like that, running around New York, going to get pizza. I remember this one pizza joint, and it was on the corner of, I think, 3rd Street and St. Mark's. And they had it was right in the middle of New York City, kind of like little Italy-ish area, right in 3rd and St. Mark's, and it's on the corner. And they had like a big case, and they had every kind of pizza like you can think of, whether you like, at the time, whether you're vegetarian or you had like meat. There weren't too many like vegans back then. This is like, I'm talking a long time ago, like more than 20 years ago. Okay, this is a long time ago. A long time ago! And they had so much pizza there. I remember we used to go there like regularly when I was in Kitty, and we'd have pizza there, and it was a boss. You'd have to like fold your slice in half and then like kind of like try to like get that down your gullet, because it was hard. It was a big piece of pizza. It was a big slice of pizza. It was a lot to bite off. But it happened, you know, it was good. It was good. Oh, I loved it. But like, the things that might surprise you from the 90s were like the media differences that I don't think we get now. We don't get like the censorship that we get now. Like everything is just like out there, and some people will cover it up or report it. We didn't have that like in the 90s. Like I went from like Tiger Beat magazine, which was like pictures of like JTT and like Joey Lawrence. I had like a picture of Joey Lawrence like taped above my bed, and like I told my friends that I hoped that the tape would like give way, so he would like, I'd wake up and his poster would be on top of me. That's horrible. That's so funny though. That's horrible. Oh my God. I can't believe I'm telling you this. I can't believe I'm telling you this. I'm sharing my information with you. There's nothing my love can't fix for you, baby. Joey Lawrence from Blossom. But then my taste graduated to like 17 magazine. And like 17 magazine was like fun. And I liked 17 because it was like light. It had like beauty tips. Because I say like the 90s was like the age of makeup. I even had a subscription to 17 magazine. And I got my subscription every month. My friend bought it for me for my birthday one year. And she had bought it. And she just signed me up for it. So I got it every month for like a year. And I loved it. And then so 17 magazine was like, you know, like how to make out with like your partner and whatever like that. And it was like, massage your partner's tongue with your tongue and let them massage your tongue with their tongue. And it was just like, okay. And so then you graduate that time, and you graduate those magazines, and you graduate to Cosmo, or at least you think, maybe I'm going to graduate to Cosmopolitan. It's like the sex issue. And like you open up the Cosmo, and there's like the editor's notes, and there's the table of contents, a few notes about makeup and a few things here and there, some editor's notes, a story or two. And then literally the first article you open is like, during deep pelvic thrusting. And then you close the magazine because clearly you are not old enough to read that magazine. Like you can't. No, I was embarrassed by it when I first like opened up a Cosmopolitan magazine. I was like, oh, because I wasn't sexually active when I opened one up. So I was like, during deep pelvic thrusting. What? What is deep pelvic I don't even want to know. I know, but I don't know. So I'm good. I'm good. Now, speaking of deep, I need a deep sleep. And I'll tell you, I was almost in the astral because I finally got to go see a really cool like deep jam band called Astral Jams. They're a local band. Last night, finally, I got to go sit on a hill and just quietly just listen to a band. It was lovely. The weather was lovely. The band was lovely. Everyone was lovely. Everything was good. Like, it was good times. The kids enjoyed themselves. They sat on the hill and just kind of listened and picked rocks and flowers and had a great time. It was lovely. And I can't wait to do it again. And also, this band is like a band that never rehearses. It's two gentlemen. And the amount of sound coming out of these two people, I put it up in my lives and stuff. I came on for a little bit because I didn't want to like interrupt their concert going like live and stuff like that and being a dinky. But like, buy their stuff on Bandcamp. They're part of a band called Prism Tape Philosophy, and you can see their stuff on Bandcamp too. And they are headed up by Howie Zowie, a guy that I met like I say a million years ago, and him and his wife are just lovely people, and I adore them. They're wonderful folks. And Howie Zowie and friend just jamming up, and his drummer from Prism Tape Philosophy just drumming up a storm and playing. Just, they don't rehearse. This kills me. They don't rehearse before they go on. It's just they go on and whatever kind of happens. I have so much respect for that. I think it's so cool. So just like listening to them just like blew my mind. I think my eldest mind was blown. He's like, Mom, I could have sat there forever and like listened to that. I'm like, well, you have to go to bed. But so there's that. But like he just was just like, because again, it's like his favorite band is Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. That's my guy. That's my kid. So like it was awesome. So it was cool to see how much sound, like I say, can come out of two people. And I'm a big fan of like two people bands. Like I love the Blue Stones, for instance, Canadian band. Love the Blue Stones. I love the White Stripes. They all have like the Blue Stones, the White Stripes. I love the White Stripes. Like two people bands. I love the Black Keys. All colors. Black, blue, white. Rush. Okay, that's three. Damn it. Well, one's passed away, but still there were three. But anyways, there are a lot of good like twosomes that are like amazing. And I think they're really underestimated. So it was really, really cool to go see local talent. And Howie Zowie still does a amazing show on CHRW radio, the Howie Zowie Show. If you go to 94.9 CHRW, you can find it on the internet. And he has the Howie Zowie Show. It's like a morning show. And he spins all kinds of really cool tunes, things that you probably haven't heard or won't hear anywhere else. Lots of cool old Zappa stuff. If you like Frank Zappa, you better tune in because you're missing out hardcore. Super good. Awesome stuff. Really good stuff. That's another bowl of like of podcast awesome. Like listening to that. Howie Zowie is the morning man that I aspire to be. He's the anchor man that I aspire to be. What is the weirdest shit I'm thinking? What is the weirdest shit that happened this week? Okay, we can file this one under totally weird. Rob and I were having a conversation about like babies or something like that. I was saying one time when I was really small, I was crying. And I couldn't stop crying. And this wasn't in the 90s. This was in the 80s. Because I was a baby. I was a wee baby. This is before I was a year. So I still had diapers on. And my mom could not get me to stop screaming. And I was red. And I was screaming and scrunching up. And I was just like not a happy kid. So she called my dad. And she was like, something's wrong with Tanya. What's going on? Came home from work. And he felt my little tummy. And it was hard. And they just started me on solids. He's like, oh no, she maybe can't go to the bathroom. So I was telling Rob that my dad put some Vaseline on his finger and put his finger on my bum and got that poo. And I said, haven't you ever had to do that as, an adult? And he just looked at me. He was like, have you? And I was like, maybe. Not anytime recently, but years and years ago, before I was vegan and I was having trouble with my stomach, And he's asking me all these questions. And I was like, well, you would only truly know the answer if one had had one's finger up one's ass. It's like asking someone where like the plumbing goes in a pipe. It's like, there's that pipe that comes off to like to the left, and there's that other pipe that'll break off and branch. And there's like an arm and it goes off to the right. And there's that PVC part. That's the kind of same thing with sticking your finger up your butt. You don't know what's going on in there unless you've had your finger up your butt. I'm just going to put it out there for you. So funny. So anyways, I think that it's funny. Now, speaking of really things that are like not funny, but something strange, funny, like not haha, but funny that I've been doing. I've been tie-dyeing everything I can get my hands on. My daughter wants socks now. So it's like tie-dyeing socks, shirts, bandanas, hats, wife beaters, like those undershirts that they used to call wife beaters. I don't know what they call them now. I still call them wife beaters. I know it might not be the appropriate name. They might be husband beaters. Who knows what they are, but they're just beaters, whatever, those shirts, undershirts. So tie-dyeing those, tie-dyeing long sleeve shirts, tie-dyeing hoodies, tie-dyeing hats, tie-dyeing backpacks. Woo! Just tie-dyeing everything. And I love doing it. So I was thinking, maybe I will tie-dye some shirts for you, and I will put it as a part of my Patreon, because I'm wearing a lot of tie-dye shirts in my new cooking show, in like Welcome to My Heavy Metal Hippie Kitchen. I'll be wearing a lot of tie-dye. It's going to be lots of fun. And maybe tie-dyeing you a heavy metal hippie custom tie-dye shirt would be fun for you if I tie-dyed one for you. And also I'm going to come up with some QR codes for a cookbook just for you, just to figure out these recipes, if you haven't figured them out just watching me chop. I don't throw them out online, so I'm going to give you a little cookbook action coming at you, where you can find fun pictures, and you can also find little clips and extra moments of what happens on the show, maybe when you're not watching the actual show. Things that don't make it to the cut, things that make it to the editing room floor. You'll get to see a little bit of extra action behind the scenes and how we kind of do the cooking show around here, around these parts, and how we handle that. I think you'll have fun. So I think I'm also having a very special episode of 21st Century Rocker Mom podcast. It's going to come out next weekend, because I had to finish my consultation with medical professionals before I do it, because it's a kind of a sensitive topic. It's a difficult topic. So I had to consult with a physician, a general practitioner, doctor. I had to talk to a nutritionist. I had to talk to a special doctor that is for your endocrine system. I had to talk to a couple of specialists that deal with skin stimulation, hair growth, different doctors, hormones. I talked to an oncologist, lots of different specialists that I had to speak with, and what they had to say about a certain subject that I can't wait to talk to you about. And I think this topic is going to blow your fucking head off this week. You're not going to believe it, and you're going to be like, what? I'm going to give you some really cool tips and tricks and free stuff just for you, just for watching, just for listening, that I know that you need. And I'm so excited to give it to you, and I'm so excited to see you next week. Oh my God, I'm so excited. So like I say, this episode has taken me a few weeks, and it's been a labor of love, but I'm so excited to share it with you. I'm so excited to drop it all on all of you, and it's going to be a fun video. You'll be able to see it on my YouTube too. I think this one will be extra fun. So this one is one that you're probably not ready for, but are you ever really ready for what the fuck I'm talking about on this goddamn podcast? Probably fucking not. You know where you can find me every week. I'm always on. I'm always on Instagram. I'm pretty much switched on all the time. Like I say, I'm on Instagram at 21st Century Rocker Mom. You can find me on TikTok, just doing weird things at the same handle, 21st Century Rocker Mom. There's a link up to my YouTube in there if you haven't subscribed to it yet. My YouTube channel is on there. It's Tanya Candler channel. You can just click subscribe, and if you hit the little bell, you get a notification, and you can actually watch the podcast. Sometimes when I have guests on, maybe you want to watch it, maybe you want to listen to it. I don't want to tell you what to do. You do what you want to do. It's streaming everywhere you stream podcasts. You can listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen to it where you choose. You can find me on my Twitter. Usually I'm just making political banter, but I've been banned from so many political people's Twitter accounts that it's hilarious. Maxime Bernier, Mark Emery, you name it. And they don't like me. Whatever. Go home. I'm pretty sure they're going to ban me from the Pope's Twitter pretty soon. See you later, Your Majesty. But like I say, I'm banned from so many Twitters right now. And I think it's mostly and mainly for having an opinion and being a woman. But let me say, to the haters and the people that don't like that I have an opinion or don't like the fact that I am or identify as a woman, when I'm finished with you, you're going to think the whole Trojan army's been in there. Wah, wah, swing. You're going to be in trouble. So just wait. And I want you to have a full week like the Trojan army is inside of you. I want you to have a wonderful week. I want you to take good care of each other. If you don't know who this bearded gentleman is on my shirt, ask your sister or brother, especially if they grew up in the 90s. He is Don Beard Leone. He is the beard father. He's like the godfather of beards. If you don't know who the fuck this is, it's Fred Penner. And if you don't know who that is, look it up. He's crawling through a log near you. I will see you all next week on a very special edition of 21st Century Rocker Mom podcast. I love you. Mwah. Thank you for tuning in for another wild week of what happened to Camp Candler. I will see you next week.